We've got a busy agenda, so we wanted to go ahead and get rolling with the presentation that we've got today. We're going to be hearing from Amwell Digital Health Systems. We've got a presentation to start that off with this joint committee meeting that we've got with Education and Youth and Children and Family. And then after that, we've got three bills on the agenda for Education and Youth. So if y'all finishing signing up there, but if we could have the presenter come on up and get that presentation started. Thank you very much. If you would proceed.
Sure, absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Stephen McNeil, VP of Behavioral Health for Amwell. Also joined here by my colleagues, Rhonda Shalou, who's the Director of Behavioral Health, and Matt McCormick, who is Amwell International. If you can go to the next slide, please. So wanted to talk to you today about what it would look like if our youth could access behavioral health and mental health when they need it, when they're even before crisis, be able to get access to behavioral health care. The next slide, please. As many of you may or may not be aware of, the state of Georgia is in a mental health crisis when it comes to our adolescents. 32% of adolescents are experiencing anxiety and depression. While the recommended ratio of students to counselors is 500 to 1, Georgia's ratios are a staggering 6,390 to 1. This is further compounded by the fact that we have a shortage in behavioral health professionals that are there to meet the need and to provide that care without a long wait. We just simply cannot hire our way out of the problem because there aren't enough professionals out there to care for our youth. Wanted to share with you an example of the state of Mississippi facing kind of a similar challenge in what they did. The University of Mississippi Medical Center was dealing with numbers that were just as staggering as these. And in fact, they had, through the help of the University of Mississippi Medical Center and in association with the Center for Telehealth, had built an adolescent therapy program. But what they found was that they were falling short of the need as well, and they needed to put a program in place, which I'm about to talk through with you. They started with a pilot program, and after the tremendous success that they had, they were able to then make the decision to roll out this program statewide. So what this program entailed was providing care to the youth through their own phones, their own devices. I went out on site to some of the schools there in the underserved community, met with some of the students, and I was very encouraged about how they wanted to seek care, but they just did not have a channel in which to obtain that care in a timely fashion. So we provided them through their own devices, which they went to school with every day, that ability to engage and to get access to therapy that was what we call asynchronous, or therapy that they could access at any time on their own time, to be able to receive care for anxiety and depression with the assistance of a coach or someone that was a licensed professional that could provide that additional support as they were going through that asynchronous care. It started with them chatting, being able to engage through a chat, and then to get directed to the right level of care, which in this case was SilverCloud, powered by Amwell. So SilverCloud, powered by Amwell, gave them access to anxiety and depression care, as well as stress management. If you go to the next slide, please. Through SilverCloud by Amwell, these students were able to receive real-time, self-guided as well as coached care. These programs were things that they could pull up on their phone and access. The outcomes were undeniable. 80% of those individuals that went through and received this care saw improvement in their symptom scores, with a further 65% showing significant clinical improvement. What does that mean? That means that they saw at least a 3-point or more drop in their symptom scores for anxiety and depression. 56% saw sustained recovery after 3 months. And that was really significant because one of the struggles that we have in behavioral health is individuals coming back into our health systems to receive the same care over and over and over again. and that can be very costly and also create tremendous wait times when care is needed. All of this care that they received was evidence-based, based on 20-plus years of clinical research, with that ability for us to treat mild, moderate, and even moderate severe symptoms of anxiety and depression. Huge satisfaction on the part of the students. They really love being able to access that care when and how they needed it. In fact, when I was there at the school, you know, again, in an underserved community, when I shared with them and showed them this device on my own phone, I gained the nickname Mr. Phoenix, being that's where I'm from, because, you know, they really appreciated me coming out and really speaking to them personally and helping them with their challenges. So through these programs that we provided for the students, they were able to provide care that was on par with face-to-face care for a quarter of the cost. I know many of you are familiar with, you know, those traditional forms of care, going in to see a therapist, so being able to do that for a quarter of the cost. And also, too, in conjunction with the Center for Excellence, as well as with the therapy resources that they had, they were able, even when individuals were getting that face-to-face care, to be able to provide the Silver Cloud digital service, and they were able to reduce the number of visits by 2 on average per standard of care. So I'd like to pause for a moment and take any questions from the committee.
Senator Dolezal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Neal. Can you walk us through your first slide, the 6390 students in Georgia for every school counselor? I know that we have in our budget this year to fund that at our recommended level of 1 to 450. Which would actually be lower than the recommended number that you have here, meaning better than. So where does the 6390 come from? Because my understanding it was more like 550 that we're currently at. We're looking to lower that to about 1 to 450.
No, that's a great question. And these are stats that we pulled from online resources. So, you know, I'm open to standing corrected on that if we didn't quote that properly. But these are what was online.
I didn't know if it was taking into account some other, I guess, classification of college students or something that maybe we wouldn't have.
Not to my understanding. This is taking into account K through 12.
We can find that resource for you.
Great.
Yeah, we can provide the precise source.
Senator Merritt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So your telehealth programs is what you're telling us. They've been successful with universities in other states so far.
So just to clarify, so Silver Cloud is not a telehealth program.
Okay.
I'm not talking about being able to get a live counselor, you know, via a phone or video screen. What I'm talking about is being able to go into an app and go through clinically validated programs to provide cognitive behavioral therapy care. So at your own pace.
Okay, if I may, Mr. Chairman, follow-up question.
Oh, absolutely.
So if we do implement this or we adopt this proposal, do you have any idea how this might be implemented in our high schools?
Absolutely. So what the state of Mississippi did is they started with a pilot. So they started with 3 schools, 3 high schools. And they made the service available by working through the counseling departments to create awareness, working through the administrators in the schools to create awareness, and then providing access to the students where they could click on a link when they are in need of care, and then be able to download the app and then proceed to access care. Consent had already been provided by parents to be able to provide that care when needed.
Okay.
So we did address that. That was a big part of things. So we had to go through a process there. But then once the service was available, they were able to download that app and access care when they needed it.
So you've been able to collect data from the pilot program, and you're getting your data from the
pilot program.
From the pilot program.
Absolutely,
Okay.
yes. And so the data from the pilot program led them to do a statewide launch this past February. They're doing that in phases, doing 20 to 25 schools at a time and rolling that out statewide through the Department of Education.
I want to know how much. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your testimony. Your symptom scores, now, these are derived from an instrument developed by a particular institution or service group?
Great question, great question. So these symptom scores are measured by the PHQ-9 or GAD-7, which are standards of measurement in the behavioral health field, the GAD-7 for anxiety and the PHQ-9 for depression. Those assessments are administered when someone starts a Silver Cloud program, at a minimum when they conclude, but sometimes also periodically throughout to measure how they're progressing and how their symptoms are improving.
Yeah, and who developed the program for the symptom scores?
So these are national standards. So these are used universally by therapy and psychiatry offices across the country.
Right, I do understand the standards. What I'm saying is it goes into almost like a survey test, if you will.
That's correct. So if I were to do a live demo, you would see a series of clicking that would happen as you get answered each of the questions sequentially, and then you're responding with your clicks, then that's providing a measurement.
So, and not to discount anything, just point of clarity, is so as opposed to having a number of counselors with a pulse that would deal in the schools as traditional schools, somebody of my generation may have dealt with, what they would be doing is using their phone to go into this app, and the app would guide them to the area that they would need to go to based on the symptom scores, and would offer feedback in order to help them calm down or possibly something beyond that if it's a serious problem?
That's correct, yes. Now, this can also be used in conjunction with the efforts that the counseling department is providing. So sometimes the counseling department may have done an assessment of their own and determined that, yeah, they really should start working with the Silver Cloud program.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I've got a more of a question where Amwell, y'all had stepped in and helped a University of Georgia, when a University of Georgia student passed away.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. Recently, death by, suicide, which is obviously very, very tragic. And when you look at the athletic department, and if you look at that as a community of individuals where there's a high level of stigma around seeking behavioral health care when it's needed, and then not having that access in a timely fashion, a community that we don't commonly think about as maybe needing that mental health care but struggles equally. But yes, when we had that incident happen at the university, we did provide care for the students there at no additional charge or cost. And we got that up and running for them and available to them within a week.
Thank you.
None. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to give kudos a little bit, Atlanta Public Schools last year in October rolled out a telehealth program where students and teachers can use at any point for free the platform and connect them with a live counselor. And I was curious about how this platform would complement that, be in lieu of that. How does this platform interact with programs like the telehealth programs that some school districts are moving towards?
That's a great question. Again, the state of Mississippi, went through the same decision-making process as well, because they did have some established telehealth services. But what they found was that there was still a significant part of individuals in need that were not reaching out or seeking access through telehealth. Again, not feeling comfortable with that face-to-face with that in-person treatment. And so when they brought or incorporated the digital component, they were able to reach more students and have even stronger outcomes. So really taking a multi-pronged approach is what we're finding creates the best results.
So it's complementary.
Complementary, absolutely.
What's the cost of a program like this on per student or average size school district?
Great, yeah, another really solid question. So what we're finding is that we can drive the same level of outcomes that are comparable with face-to-face treatment for 1/4 of the cost. So what happens is even traditional teletherapy now, as we call it, I guess we can call it traditional, but teletherapy, telepsychiatry, that still carries a per visit fee. Okay. If you look at how much it costs to access a digital program, it's a fraction of that, but it's still driving the the same outcomes. So what happens then is when you balance the two together, you're able to, in fact, positively impact the cost outlay for your teletherapy, okay, and reach those individuals that can perfectly have their needs met with a digital solution in a less costly fashion, but with the same outcomes.
Any further questions from the committee?
Number 8. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are there any other state agencies that are using this platform or service? I know you mentioned something about the University of Georgia, but any state employees using this service?
Sure.
Can you talk to me about that? I'm just trying to really understand, are y'all already working at the state level, or are you just working with universities? Is it only for schools? I'm just trying to understand it a little bit better. If you could help me out, from down I-16's way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, as you very well know, the state of Georgia, you've been proactive in contracting out for this type of service and to make it broadly available. We are in conversations with other departments and agencies within the state of Georgia to provide care across the spectrum. So employees where there's high burnout, high turnover, to provide that additional care, not just with students. We work with a number of hospitals in the state to provide telehealth as well as teletherapy services. And then we're working both with state and federal government as well to provide this care in multiple states, as well as Department of Defense and other key agencies.
Senator Hatchett.
Number 3, yep. So I appreciate the efforts and what y'all are trying to do. Do you have any information on why we're seeing such a spike in mental health issues in youth particularly? And is there a correlation, or has there been found to be a correlation between social media use, device use, and mental health issues?
Yeah, there are definitely multiple factors that are impacting our youth today. I think some of those things that you just described are definitely showing as having an impact. I think one of the most significant things that we've seen is post-COVID, 1 in 5 adults were experiencing a mental health issue at some point in their lifetime, and that actually increased to 1 in 3. Okay, post-COVID. As it is today, right? So just universally across the board, the prevalence has gone up. And then you weigh that against the fact that there has been a lot of turnover in the behavioral health industry, a lot of aging out of professionals and the traditional modalities of care. So we've had to really just think differently about the problem as well as the solution and how to meet the need.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any further questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Do we have any other speakers on this topic today before we close this joint hearing out? Seeing none, I'm going to close the joint education and youth and children and families hearing. We'll close that now, and then we will reopen education and youth.
So we roll, man.
Hey, if he didn't adjourn,
Oh, that's a good point.